This is The Filter on iHeart Podcasts Canada.
Aysanabee, congratulations on the release of Edge of the Earth. How are you feeling since the release of the new album?
Feeling really good. You know, I've when records come out, like the artists always sit on it for a bit, right? So it's been ready since the fall. So I'm really excited to kind of share these songs and these stories with everybody.
Well, that's kind of my question. When did you actually start working on this? Because if we're following along on social media, it seems like there's been no rest period between the last album, you're now touring, and then suddenly you started teasing this new album. So what's that timeline been like?
Yeah. Like I've like you said, like I've been on the road doing like a lot of shows. So when I'd be back, you know, I'm usually in studio. I'm usually writing. But the oldest song on the record is Dreamcatcher, which was written in 2022. And like I remember when me and Hill were writing it, like we were kind of just like, what do you want to write about? And, you know, kind of posed this question of like, how much do we value art and how far would we be willing to go for it? And, you know, it was kind of became the through line for the album. Every song on the record kind of speaks to that in part. So it's songs over the last kind of 2.5 years of just my experience kind of during this whole journey of kind of traversing the music industry and traveling and playing music. And yeah, so I guess 2.5 years.
Yeah, I flippin' love Dreamcatcher. It is such a beautiful big song. So no wonder it's taken a minute to put that one together and finalize it on the album, by the way. Can you talk to me about the theme of the album and how it relates to the title, Edge of the Earth?
Yeah. Like I said, every song on the record just, you know, is this moment in my life where it just kind of brought me to like a crossroads or period of reflection. So Edge of the Earth is kind of like, a metaphor for just kind of getting to the edge of an unknown, getting to the edge of, the edge of an unknown in life. And like, I've never been to that point. I've never had to make this decision and wasn't sure if I was ready, but this is just how it felt like in the moment. So
with those big kind of stop reflective moments, what song was the most difficult or took the longest to really formulate into that track for the album?
I think one of the toughest songs was probably Without You. You know, that song was written for my grandfather. You know, I wrote a whole album dedicated to him, but this was kind of the morning song. You know, like I remember like he finished his journey like last year, right? And I remember my aunt was kind of just like, you know, why don't you better come up here, like he's got a bit of time left. So I went up there and I walked into his room and I remember him being like, what are you doing here? I thought you had shows. And I was like, I came to be with you. And so we got to spend some time together and have our final conversations. And at the end of it, he was just kind of like, you know, I'm glad you canceled the shows. I'm glad you're here, but I want you to do the things that you say you're going to do. And so like, that was our final conversation, and he kind of went to sleep and kind of never woke up again. And so I'd gone on a flight to go perform in Whitehorse, and as soon as my flight landed, I got the news that he had passed away, so that was like kind of a difficult one, and so that kind of inspired that song, which is his morning song. So.
Wow, that's beautiful, just to have that moment of conversation with him and reconnect. Is that where the video was filmed when you went? Did you go back home to film the video for it?
Yeah, well, when I went home and I was starting the Northern tour earlier this year. That was filmed on Whitefish Lake, and there's a bit of symbolism, like kind of Easter eggs in there. You know, partly how I ended up in Toronto was kind of falling through the ice and kind of having this near-death experience. And like I'd had quite a few near-death experiences in Northern Ontario, but I think that one was like the one that shook me the most, because like
falling through the ice.
Yeah,
wow.
I had family that kind of like passed away in similar situations. You know, like I had a family member who went through the ice skidooing, my grandfather's son, my uncle, and like that was going through my mind when I fell through the ice. I was just kind of like thinking about my family, like, because everybody thought my uncle was like maybe still out there somewhere, just because he was like an outdoors guy, so we weren't able to like find him till spring, and I just thought of that for myself, right? So my grandfather never really rode a skidoo again after that. So that whole video, it's like me back up in the north where I'm from, and I'm just kind of riding around on the skidoo on the lake, and it's kind of a symbol for like breaking cycles and moving forward and growth, which I don't think anyone would really get unless I mentioned it. But
no, when I saw it at first, I was like, he's not wearing a toque. It looks very cold. But now I'm gonna look at it in a completely different light.
It was very cold. I think like it was funny because my buddy Chad, who was filming it, and the crew, like they were on like this ice fishing tent, and like so they were just like using drones from the warmth of this tent while like I'm in like negative 30 or whatever, like just zooming along. But no, that's just the north though. So.
Right. So after now the album's out, you put together all these songs, you've had time to reflect on all these big changes and reflective moments. Do you think it has changed how you welcome or approach change or these big moments?
I hope so. I hope I everything's growth. Like that's the songwriting process for me is usually just you're reflecting on lived experiences, and I think that's where we find growth is just by taking the moment to look back and reflect on our lives and reflect on the way we carry ourselves in the world. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but
it's all part of the growth process, of course. Now, so, like I said, congratulations on the album, also released in Indigenous History Month, and you're doing something so special to share the stage on tour with local Indigenous artists. What was that process like of narrowing down the people who are going to be joining you on stage?
That was actually, it was quite tough. It was tough for a few reasons. Like in the bigger cities we're playing, like we get like a ton of applications, and there's so many incredible artists that it was like really hard to like decide on one. So we'd have a couple openers, but then there was still people who wouldn't get to play, right? And we'd still invite them to come to the shows and stuff. But then like in the more cities we were playing kind of more off the beaten path, like it would be hard to get applications, right. But it's been like a really beautiful experience just getting to know all these artists and getting to meet them and build this community. Like I hear from a lot of my peers, and I'll see their interviews, and they talk about never ever seeing people like themselves in the music industry. So like kind of building this network and community where people can like come just knock on my door and be like, hey, how does this work? Just creating like a healthy music community where we share insights and whatever they want to talk about. So. Yeah,
absolutely. So even if it doesn't work out this time, they now can reach out, and you like have opened that door. That's got to mean so much.
Yeah, and we're doing it again, and it's like it's been really incredible. Like honestly, the response has been really great. Like I'm really really excited to like start announcing some of the artists coming up. Like there's this one really young cat out in Manitoba who's just like, I think he's like, I don't know, 17 years old maybe. Like his manager reached out and she was like, this is so and so's manager, also his mom. And it was like, yes. But then like she sent some of the music, and he's just like, it's like this like indigenous Teskey brother.
Wow.
Like, so I'm really excited to kind of just be there listening, but also to share his music with everybody.
Are there going to be any open mic drop-ins when you're out on this tour?
Maybe. Yeah. No, I love that. I might actually learn some covers for that. I feel like it's pretty jokes to kind of go and do that. Yeah, I think because there was that one video circulating from PEI where we had a couple days off, and there was this open mic. I think it was part of like PEI Music Week, and so I went there and signed up, and then there was like this one person who's like, I'm gonna do this cover from this great Canadian artist, and And then the next person did the same thing. And they're like, I'm going to do a cover from another Canadian artist I love. And I think he did like a Sky Wallace song. And I know where I was like, oh, that's sweet. So then I just ended up doing that. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to play a song from a Canadian artist. And like, I don't know that many covers. So I was just like, you know, I don't want to screw anything up. So I'm just going to do my own song. But then I started telling the story behind the song in third person. But my band was in the corner and they're just like cackling. And like, I remember trying to just keep it together. And then I was playing the songs and like a couple people I could tell were just like, because a couple people were coming to the show the next night.
Oh, hilarious.
But there was one person who came up and was like, so like, what's that artist you said? I really like the song. And so they opened up like their like Spotify and like I brought up the Spotify and it was just a picture of me and I'm just like so it was kind of like a funny moment.
You got a new fan.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to The Filter, an iHeart Podcasts Canada production. Subscribe to The Filter wherever you get your podcasts.